Industry leaders in high-tech and e-commerce share their amazing insights with Silke Schweigert, CEO of Yonkers. In this series, we interview thought leaders about artificial intelligence and its application in global business. Within a few minutes, gain amazing insights into the use of AI to drive global customer experience.
Louis, good morning. Well, better, good afternoon since you're based in China. Great to have you here. Good to see you. And I'm very pleased to welcome you here on our AI interview series. So maybe if you could start off introducing yourself and also telling us what eCargo, the company you're working for, is all about.
Sure. Yeah. Firstly, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever we are around the world. So I work as eCargo's head of corporate marketing. So I manage eCargo's corporate comms and corporate marketing, and particularly strategy, with experience across both offline and online distribution in China, working with brands from all over the world. So a bit about eCargo: we build brands in Asia. We focus on creating deep connections between brands and consumers by leveraging expertise in offline distribution, e-commerce, marketing, and global logistics across the full chain. We usually take on a partnership role as an importer, distributor, or service provider for the brand in Asia, and we work with brands over a range of different pricing setups, be that commission basis, monthly fees, or retainers, or a buy and sell basis.
Right. Well, that's very interesting. And you mentioned offline stores there. I mean, obviously, the last 2 years have been quite challenging in terms of the COVID situation. And in Europe, that has certainly led to more remote working, but also the closure of retail stores. What's the situation there in China? And also, how do you see e-commerce growing in Asia and in that region across the next 2 to 3 years?
Well, yeah, it's been a very challenging couple of years in many respects, but there are opportunities. That's sort of the main thing I'd say for the Asian market. It's a very quick moving market, so when a trend catches on, it's important to react quickly and have the right partner in Asia who can help you capture and get on the back of that trend. When it comes to offline sales in China, obviously last year it took a hit. In China, believe it or not, offline sales actually still make up 75% of all retail sales. You'd think that with all the news about e-commerce, about China and Asia, that e-commerce had a much bigger stake, but offline is still very key. That said, e-commerce sales as a total proportion of retail sales grew hugely over the past couple of years for obvious reasons. The way that I would explain e-commerce in China and Asia is that it's developed at a rate unseen around the world, and it's also continuing to develop at a much quicker rate than what's seen around the world, with huge growth not just in the past 2 years but also the past 5 years. There's extreme vertical integration that companies like Alibaba and JD will have, who can control everything across the supply chain, from manufacture through to logistics, through to marketing, obviously on the e-commerce platforms themselves, and then delivery to the end consumer. So while offline trading and offline retail in China and Asia is still a huge part of the market, e-commerce is continuing to grow, and for international brands looking to enter Asia, e-commerce, and particularly cross-border e-commerce, which is one type of e-commerce that brands can use, is crucial for brand success in the region.
Yeah, absolutely. And so with that in mind, where do you see technology and the use of AI making the biggest impact in that e-commerce and in fact across the whole supply chain?
So I'd bring it back to integration. So as I mentioned previously, all of these huge e-commerce companies, be they Alibaba, Jingdong, or Pinduoduo, a relatively new player, but a very, very quickly growing one in the past couple of years, they're all exceptionally vertically integrated, which gives them control over the entire supply chain, but also the entire, they can capture and generate and manipulate data from all sort of data points across the entire chain. which essentially allows them to have control, not just monitoring, but control over, for example, production output at factories. These big e-commerce companies are working directly with factories to basically help the factories produce based on consumer demand at a level unseen in the past. They're giving them access to real-time data, which tells them what trends are going to be popular at which time of the year, to help factories essentially get their production schedules perfect, 99% rather than 80%. In terms of consumer-facing side of things, these e-commerce companies rely hugely on AI and consumer-generated data to suggest products to consumers based on what type of products people will buy at what particular type of month, based on one individual person. For example, for me, usually it's pretty crazy. On the last week of every month is when I usually buy a lot of my toiletries and this type of thing. Usually every single month, last week of the month, I'll open up my Tmall or my JD, and every single suggested product is toiletries. The brands that I like, or a particular new brand that I might enjoy based on what I've purchased in the past, based on a Japanese or a Korean brand. If it's time for me to sort of level up and get a different type of product. So really, what I'd say is, you're looking at the full integration across the chain. Is something which all of the major platforms have implemented, which enables them to leverage the data created, to manipulate that data, and to use AI to make sure that the entire chain is much more efficient.
Yeah, absolutely. We actually see the same in our industry. If you look at there's an enormous shift in our industry. So in terms of content and bringing that to the global market, is to really shift away from big projects to really going into continuous localization. And this is obviously, that goes hand in hand with what you're saying, is to the cross-border e-commerce side of things obviously becomes a lot more important, and that's where our business in terms of languages fits in quite nicely. So yeah, that's really, really interesting. Sorry.
So I mean, you in the past few years, as supply chains get more efficient and it's much more easy for brands to expand internationally, are you guys seeing a change in the type of content that you're creating, that you localize for these brands? Or is there more pressure on the speed and quality, demanded by customers?
Yeah, but it's both actually. So on the one hand, we see a change in the type of content. So moving away from that big type project to more like continuous localization, really producing ad hoc content and then wanting to launch it immediately into all the markets. And on the other hand, we see that a lot of especially e-commerce companies are going into new markets, i.e. needing other languages. And then obviously the increased pressure of times. So for us to really decrease the time to market, to make sure that everything goes efficiently. And that's why we've created our platform that integrates AI to help companies to do that. So it's really interesting to see how, that your offerings and what you're seeing at your customers is pretty similar to what we're seeing, wanting to go global and wanting to launch products online as well in as many countries as possible.
Yeah. I mean, it's crucial. I mean, particularly in Asia, it's a very fast-moving market. China's an exceptionally fast-moving market. So it's important not just to localize content, but also be very, very quick with it. As I said before, these trends come and go very quickly. So brands need to really be ready. So it's great that you guys have built your platform to provide brands with very quick and accurate products.
What advice would you give to companies who want to enter China with their products?
There's a lot of advice. Firstly, of course, as you touched on previously, localization is key. Chinese consumers and of course Asian consumers on the whole are very aware of the buying power that they have as a collective. So there's been a lot of cases, obviously, of international brands coming into China and expecting that because they've got a fantastic product overseas, that they can come into China and make a quick buck out of the market. But consumers are wise to that; they're very savvy. So they want to find a brand that's not just localizing their content, but is actually really committed to the market. And obviously, the first part of showing commitment is localizing your brand, localizing your product offering, and then after that, being very quick when it comes to answering consumer complaints and dealing with the new trends and the new forces that are in market. Aside from that, it's really important, particularly in China and Asia, to have trusted partners who know what they're doing. There's a lot of partners in this region who will find overseas brands and promise them the world and not deliver it. You need to find a partner who is going to stick with you for a long-term journey of growth. It's gone are the days where you could bring your overseas product in market and it will do very well. That's 10 years in the past when Chinese consumers really, international products had a much larger sort of exotic nature around them. Nowadays, you're in a fight against thousands of local brands, which consumers are more and more turning to. So really, I'd sum it up into localization, finding a trusted partner, being patient, and then also finally asking not what Asia and China can do for your brand, but what your brand can do for the consumers in the region.
Thank you very much, Lewis. Thank you for sharing your experience and thank you for being on this interview. Have a lovely day. You
too. Thank you, Silke. It's a great opportunity to come on and talk to you.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.